Okay, welcome back. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We've gone through, we've set up our database, we've set up our relationships, we've defined our data validation options, and it is now ready to start. We're ready to start using our database. All right, so the most basic function that you'll see coming out of a database, besides just putting data in the database, is performing a query. What is a query? Well, a query is a question. And if you think about databases, we use databases every day. Every time we go to the ATM, every time we go on Amazon.com, every time we go on Netflix, we are using databases, right? So when you go to the ATM, you put your debit card in the machine and you say, how much money do I have? What is my account balance? You know what that is? That is a query. You asked the database a question. What is the balance of account number, whatever that may be? Okay, so in our movie database, we have an inventory table. Now, in that inventory, we've got all the movies and their ratings, like so. So, what I want to talk to you about is performing a basic query to figure out how many G rated movies we have in our inventory. How do we do that? All right, so I'm going to close the table and I'm going to go to create. Now, there are two different ways to create queries in Access. You have the query wizard, like so, and query design. All right. The query wizard for basic fields or for basic queries does an okay job. I think that the return on investment for using query design versus using query wizard is a little bit better. You get a little bit more bang for your buck. You have a lot more control. You can just really go farther with it if you feel comfortable using VBA, using SQL. You can get in there and do some pretty cool stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go old school. We're going to go query design. Okay. Now, when you go query design, this box pops up that looks like the relationships table box because it looks the same, but it's really not. And it's going to ask you, well, what tables contain data that you want to use in your query? Now, this is actually a very important step. You have to pay attention to what you're doing because if you make a mistake here, you can go back, but what's going to happen is that you're going to end up with repetitive data. Here's what I mean. Inventory. The movies appear in two different tables inside your data set, right? Because you have that common field of serial number. So in your database, you have the inventory table, which just has the movie name, the release date, and the serial number and the movie rating. Then you have the transactions that has every time that movie's been rented. If you add all three tables, if you add two of the three tables, this one and this one, what's going to happen is when you run your query, the query is going to have repeating data because it's going to show not only all the G-rated movies, it's also going to show you the movies every time they've been checked out, which you don't want. So because we're doing a basic query here, what we're going to do is we're going to just add the inventory table, and then we're going to close this. So let's say that we want all this data. So for every field that you want to show up in your query results, you're going to double click it. So we'll take serial number, take movie title, take release date, take rating. Okay, so if I go up to the ribbon and I hit run, well, not exactly what I was looking for. But while I'm here, let's turn aggregation on. We're going to jump down to the bottom and we'll choose count. So there's 30 movies. So it sort of worked, but it didn't work the way we wanted. So we'll go back to design. It gave us what we wanted. Now, could we, while we were in datasheet view, while we're here, could we sort and filter it by G and get the results we wanted? We could, but it's really not the best plan for a lot of different reasons. So a couple things to think about. You can't assume that everybody knows how to use a database the way that you do at this point. We've been through some training videos, we've been through some classes. Not everyone knows databases the way that you do. So you're making a big assumption by assuming that someone knows how to filter or sort. If you create the query to automatically give you just the G-rated movies, then it's going to run so much smoother, especially when you go into interface design. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into design view again, and we're going to add a basic filter automatically, right? Now this looks eerily like database functions in Excel. Okay, so I look at my fields at the bottom and I've got ratings. If I simply type in G, right, simply type in G for the rating, okay, I can go in and run it again, and there are my G-rated movies, okay. Now why did that happen? Well, let me show you. You have these criteria column right here, right? So it's going to show me the G-rated movies. Now, in prior versions of Access, you actually had to go in and you had to type quotation mark G quotation mark. You also had to go in and you could type like, oh, wait a minute, not there. You could go in and I could type like G, for example. Okay. Either way, what you need to understand is that you have the ability to add criteria here. Now, if you refer to your book, there's a lot of things you could do. You could do greater than or less than in a number, right? So for release date, I could do greater than and then a number, right? And when you do dates in Access, you actually have to do the dates surrounded by pound signs. It's kind of quirky. And I will tell you that in Office 15, it actually will do, or Office 13, it will actually do that for you. But I'm just in the habit of doing that. So I could say, hey, I want movies that are, newer than January 15th, 2015, for example, which in this data set there aren't any. But you have the ability to do that. So let's say that you wanted G-rated movies and you wanted PG-13 rated movies. All right. Well, I can go in and I can do PG. Oh, you know what? Let's just do PG movies. So I've got G, and then underneath it, I can add a second criteria of PG. I run it again, and there's G movies, and there's PG-13 movies. I can even go even farther. And with this basic query, you know what I can do? I can go in and I can make sure that it sorts in ascending order when it does that. So it's going to automatically sort it, and it's going to give me all the movies in order, like so. So there's 16 movies, there's the Gs, there's the PG-13s. Pretty cool, right? Well, there's a lot more where that came from. So come back, see me again. Hopefully we make these YouTube videos a success, and we'll do some intermediate query design shortly.